afternoon, I'm Katie Wilson and you are watching A News. Let's see the headlines. The United States and China have agreed a deal to temporarily slash reciprocal tariffs. President Zelenskyy says he is ready to meet President Putin in Istanbul for direct talks. Hamas says the organisation is ready to release an Israeli-American hostage. Trade tensions cool as Washington and Beijing strike a 90-day tariff truce, slashing tax hikes by 115%. The deal follows intense talks in Geneva and aims to steady global markets.
The United States and China have agreed to a 90-day pause in their trade war, with both countries committing to sharply reduce tariffs in a bid to ease global market uncertainty and revive economic cooperation. Speaking after high-level talks in Geneva on Monday, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced the deal, which will see China cut tariffs on US goods from 125% to 10%, while the US will reduce tariffs on Chinese imports from 145% to 30%. The revised American levy includes a 10% base rate and an additional 20% tax hike on fentanyl-related products. In a joint statement, both sides have pledged to a long-term and balanced trade relationship. Bessent called the talks robust and said both countries defended their interests well.
The consensus from both delegations this weekend is neither side wants a decoupling. And what had occurred with these very high tariffs, as Ambassador Greer said, was the equivalent of an embargo, and neither side wants that. We do want trade. We want more balanced trade, and I think that both sides are committed to achieving that.
The breakthrough follows a steep escalation in April, when President Donald Trump raised tariffs on Chinese goods to 145%, reigniting tensions in a trade conflict that began in 2018. China responded with its own levy increases, further straining global trade and the economic relationship between the world's two largest economies.
Joining me now from Madrid to discuss the latest developments is political analyst Enrique Casero. Thanks for being with us. Now, in your view, what's behind the easing of these trade tensions?
For me, the main aspect to consider here is that this couldn't stand for a long time. I mean, we already knew that China was looking for proxies in order to redirect the sales of their products. They're going to have a huge crisis, storaging all the things that the United States weren't buying. That's the reason why they need those proxies. And the United States were having reaching a serious level of not having whatever the China were producing for their companies. So it was urgent to reach an agreement at this very moment. I think this situation couldn't stand any longer.
Now, the United States says that neither side wants a decoupling. What's changed?
Probably that a lot of things that were considered into the same commercial agreement happen to be in that big bag of whatever the trade agreements were. I mean, as much as I can understand, what is coming next is an atomizing, is just make splits of products from cosmetics to technology in order to reach different levels of agreements or different ranges of tariffs to apply into the different sort of products. I mean, this one size fits all is not gonna be good any longer. So they have to deal with this differentiation of products and levels of commercial agreements.
All really interesting there. Thank you so much for your analysis. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says he's ready to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Istanbul this Thursday. The invitation follows a renewed diplomatic push and calls for a ceasefire.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says he will be in Istanbul on Thursday for direct talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, challenging him to personally attend. It follows encouragement from US President Donald Trump. It's after Putin proposed talks in Turkey during a televised address on Saturday night, but it remains unclear whether he plans to attend in person. Zelenskyy, speaking in his nightly address on Sunday, reiterated Ukraine's support for a ceasefire and called on Russia to provide a clear response.
Starting from tomorrow, we expect a ceasefire. The proposal for this is on the table. A complete and unconditional ceasefire, long enough to provide the necessary foundation for diplomacy, could bring peace much closer.
He added that Ukraine is willing to negotiate in any format and urged Moscow to respond to international calls for de-escalation.
Russia's war will still have to end. The killing must end. Ukrainian forces will be ready to mirror their response with fairness. We are ready for any format.
Zelenskyy said the ball is now in Russia's court and called on Putin to attend the meeting.
I will be in Turkey this Thursday, May the 15th, and I'm expecting Putin in Turkey, personally. I hope this time Putin will not look for reasons why he can't do something. We are ready to talk to end the war, Thursday in Turkey. President Trump supports it. All leaders support it.
Analysts say the proposal marks a significant move by Zelenskyy, especially after days of coordinated calls from European leaders for a 30-day ceasefire. Some observers also view the move as an attempt to show flexibility to key allies, including Washington.
Zelenskyy's announcement that he's willing to go to Turkey and essentially wait for Vladimir Putin, and his willingness to act boldly in the name of Ukraine's national defense. Zelenskyy is very much trying to put the front foot back on Vladimir Putin. I think he is trying to show to the U.S. that as heterodox as some of Trump's proposals and ideas may be, and as much as he may shoot from the hip on some of this policy making, that he's willing to be a partner who adapts to some of those U.S. demands, recognizing the importance of its support.
As Thursday's proposed meeting draws closer, there has been no official confirmation from the Kremlin on Putin's attendance. The two leaders have not met since 2019, when talks were held in Paris alongside France and Germany.
We heard that even if the meeting were to go ahead, that Vladimir Putin would meaningfully alter his strategy or give up the territory that he is occupying in Ukraine.
The focus now shifts to Istanbul, where the possibility of direct talks remains uncertain amid ongoing diplomatic efforts.
President Putin's late-night call for renewed negotiations is drawing sharply different reactions in the two capitals. While the mood in Moscow reflects cautious optimism, many in Kiev remain deeply sceptical.
In the Ukrainian capital, many residents are questioning the timing and motives behind Russian President Vladimir Putin's offer of direct talks with Ukraine. Some believe it may be more about political maneuvering than a genuine push for peace.
There have been warnings issued by the United States that there may be rocket attacks over the next 2 days. At the same time, there is Putin's proposal on direct talks. To be honest, it has become very difficult to understand what's going on amid all this information. For us, peaceful civilians, what matters is to have peace as soon as possible.
Putin is trying to buy time. It is just empty talk of no consequence. He is trying to buy time. He proposed to hold talks on Thursday because I read the news about it. Russians are closing the skies over Kapustin Yar, a Russian military training ground and rocket launch complex in Astrakhan region, on the 12th and 13th, which means we should expect another attack. US has issued warning about it.
Meanwhile, in Moscow, some residents expressed cautious hope that the proposal could mark a step toward ending the war.
I would like direct talks between Russia and Ukraine, because everyone wants peace and there are opportunities for this. And I think that a lot depends on the strength, or precisely the will, of Vladimir Putin in the negotiations. If he has made such an offer, it means he has his own plan. I hope it will be positive. There will be a long-awaited ceasefire and then peace.
You know, I'm not sure at all that they will be able to come to an agreement quickly. This process is complicated. But if a powerful third country isn't involved in this effort, then it's unlikely that Russia and Ukraine will reach an agreement.
For now, the prospect of a ceasefire hangs in the balance, and the war continues to grind on.
Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says Iran has no interest in developing nuclear weapons as indirect talks with the US resumed in Oman. He stressed Iran's nuclear program is strictly for peaceful purposes, such as healthcare and agriculture. Speaking in a cabinet meeting, Pezeshkian said the latest talks in Muscat were part of Iran's efforts to resolve the nuclear issue through diplomacy. He described the discussions as constructive and reaffirmed Tehran's commitment to peaceful negotiations. Officials say that further negotiations are planned. A senior Hamas official says Israeli-American hostage Eden Alexander will soon be released in Gaza. He is believed to be the last American citizen still held captive by Hamas.
After months of deadlock, Hamas says it's preparing to release Eden Alexander, a 21-year-old Israeli-American soldier held hostage in Gaza since the 7th of October 2023. A senior Hamas official confirmed the development to Reuters, describing it as part of broader efforts to reach a ceasefire and ease the humanitarian crisis in the Strip. Alexander, born and raised in New Jersey, is believed to be the last living American hostage held by Hamas.
Dan is a great guy, Jersey boy, all-American kid, great swimmer, graduated from the high school like everybody else instead of college. Traveled to Israel, served in IDF, and found himself on the wrong spot in the wrong time.
His release is expected as early as Tuesday, according to sources familiar with the negotiations. Efforts to secure his freedom have been led by key mediators, Qatar and Egypt, alongside Turkey. In a statement, Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya said the group is ready to enter intensive negotiations aimed at ending the war and exchanging prisoners. The news comes as US President Donald Trump prepares to visit the Middle East this week. He also made a post on Truth Social, thanking the mediators and calling the release a step taken in good faith toward ending the conflict. The joint statement from Qatar and Egypt welcomed the development, saying it could revive the stalled ceasefire talks that collapsed 2 months ago. They reaffirmed their commitment to pushing for a permanent ceasefire. Meanwhile, conditions in Gaza continue to deteriorate. Since the 2nd of March, Israel has cut off all supplies to the Strip's 2.3 million residents. Food reserves stockpiled during a temporary truce have nearly run out, and the United Nations has warned of imminent famine. Hamas has indicated it is willing to release all remaining hostages as part of a comprehensive agreement that includes a permanent ceasefire and a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. Israel, however, insists the war will not end until Hamas is dismantled. Earlier in May, Israel said that its military campaign might expand.
Algeria has ordered the expulsion of several French embassy staff, accusing them of breaching diplomatic protocol. Algerian authorities say 2 of them worked at the French Special Intelligence Service and allegedly entered the country using fake diplomatic passports.
Algeria has summoned the French chargé d'affaires in Algiers and ordered the immediate expulsion of multiple French embassy employees, citing what it called serious and repeated breaches of diplomatic protocol. At the centre of the latest row are at least 15 French personnel who allegedly took up posts in Algeria without proper accreditation. Among the accused, 2 officials from France's Interior Ministry Directorate of Internal Security, reportedly intelligence agents, are accused of entering the country using fake diplomatic passports. Algerian authorities say the appointments, including staff transferred after a previous expulsion, bypassed formal notification channels. This marks the second expulsion of French diplomatic staff in under a month. In April, Algeria expelled 12 French embassy employees in retaliation for the arrest of an Algerian consular officer in Paris. French authorities accused that official of involvement in the kidnapping of an Algerian opposition figure, a charge that Algiers strongly rejected. In response, France expelled 12 Algerian diplomats and recalled its ambassador in Algiers for consultations, escalating a tit-for-tat diplomatic standoff. Despite efforts to de-escalate tensions, including a late March phone call between President Abdelmadjid Tebboune and French President Emmanuel Macron, and a visit to Algiers by French Minister Jean-Noël Barrot in early April, relations continue to strain.
Protests broke out across France on Sunday following the fatal stabbing of a young Muslim man in a mosque. Demonstrators demanded justice and denounced the rise of Islamophobia in politics and media.
Hundreds of protesters marched through Paris and other major French cities on Sunday condemning rising Islamophobia. They're demanding justice for Abu Bakr Sisa, a young 22-year-old Muslim man who was fatally stabbed at a mosque last month. Rallies took place in Paris, Marseille, Lyon and other cities, saying it's in response to growing anti-Muslim sentiment in French politics and the media. In Paris, the march began at Place de la Bastille and ended at Place de la Nation, with chants of "Stop Islamophobia" and "Justice for Abu Bakr" echoing through the streets. Demonstrators also condemned Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau's immigration and security policies. The protesters were holding signs reading "Islamophobia kills," "The state and media contribute to it," "Let's resist," and "Retailleau, Abu Bakr's blood is on your hands."
The Kurdistan Workers' Party, known as the PKK, has announced its decision to dissolve. The statement was released through pro-Kurdish media on Monday. The group is saying its 12th Congress decided to end its armed struggle and dismantle the organisation. For more on the PKK's dissolution announcement, joining us live from Antalya is Vakas Dwan Tekken, Senior Correspondent at Anadolu Agency. Thank you for being with us. So, first things first, could you help us understand the circumstances surrounding this development? What's happened between Öcalan's call for PKK militants to disarm and disband in February and the announcement made today?
Good afternoon. This is not happening for the first time. Like 15 years ago, there was a similar process that started in Turkey, and unfortunately, it only lasted for a few years. And with the start of the Syrian civil war, PKK, a very opportunistic terror group it is, they decided to continue with their terrorism, and they stopped the peace process like 15 years ago, because they saw an opportunity in Syria of founding their own state, and with the help of US and other regional actors. But right now, the regional dynamics and the paradigm shifts that have happened in the past decade are in favor of Turkey. And now it is their second chance, and I think the last chance. And if they don't use it wisely, I think there will be a very crushing response from the Turkish state. Their leader, so-called leader Öcalan, was in Turkish prison for a long time, and there were negotiations. And now he is calling on his group to disband itself, and they have, after some negotiations among them, they have finally decided to disband and continue with this new peace process. There is a cautious optimism. Neither side really trusts each other completely, but it's a wait and see process. We don't know how seriously it will be taken by all the groups within PKK. we don't know if there will be new formations under it, because their statement is still having these inflammatory, statements in it, saying we are just doing away with this PKK name itself. But if they continue to really disgust the Turkish nation with poisonous statements, and if they continue as a terror group in the mentality in the Turkish parliament or elsewhere, I think it's a process that's like a minefield. The patience are very thin, and if they abuse it, I think they will be wasting a very historic opportunity.
One thing you mentioned that I want to pick up on is Syria. So what implication might this have for Turkey's Syria policy, particularly in relation to the Syrian Democratic Forces?
Right now, PKK is not wanted in the region. There was Assad government that has hosted PKK terror group for decades. Now there's a new leadership in Syria that doesn't want them, as a terror group. And Iraqis themselves are very frustrated with PKK. The Kurdish region itself, the autonomous Kurdish region in Erbil, is very frustrated with PKK. So they are not a wanted group in the region right now, and all the dynamics have changed against them. And the Syrian Democratic Forces, it's a different story. I don't know if they will be continuing the way they are, but right now, on the paper at least, they claim to be joining forces with the Syrian army, and they are also, in a way, disbanding themselves in Syria. But of course, the changing dynamics might change the new realities on the ground as well. That is very important. As I said, right now, Europe and the US, they are all minding their own business, and they are not really very much interested in the region. They have their own serious concerns with the threat of Russia and with the transatlantic alliance crumbling. So they are really into their own problems, and PKK, without their support, of course, would not be able to continue because they are the ones financing this organization. So right now, I think PKK is again actually behaving in a very opportunistic way. They are seeing this as an opportunity to survive, because Turkish state is really strong at the moment, and there is an olive branch extended to them. And if they don't take this seriously, I think PKK will, completely be destroyed in a very short time in the future.
Really interesting analysis there. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, the Turkish Minister of National Defence, Yaşar Güler, will travel to Azerbaijan today for a series of meetings with Azerbaijani officials, according to reports from TRT Haber. The minister will travel to Baku after a cabinet meeting held under the leadership of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. As part of the visit, the minister will hold a number of meetings. This trip's expected to focus on strengthening bilateral defence ties and regional security cooperation. Turkey says it's ready to support peace efforts between Azerbaijan and Armenia, as President Erdogan's advisor says Ankara is willing to play its part. In an interview with CNN Turk, the Turkish president's advisor on foreign policy and security said Turkey is ready to do its part in helping finalise a peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia. He stressed that the final decision lies with the two countries, but added that Turkey supports the process in hopes of a stable and peaceful future for the region. India will deliver the second batch of Akash surface-to-air missile systems to Armenia in July, according to Indian defence news outlets. The move follows a 2022 deal with $710 million, under which Armenia is buying 15 Akash systems, India's first export of the missile. The Akash system can target jets, missiles and drones up to 25 kilometres away. Each unit includes a 3D radar and 4 launchers with 3 missiles each. The Russian Ministry of Industry and Trade aims to open an industrial park in Azerbaijan in 2025, marking the first joint industrial project between the two countries. The Deputy Minister announced the plan in Tashkent, highlighting stronger Moscow-Baku economic ties. The park is expected to support manufacturing, technology and trade partnerships across key sectors. Tbilisi will host the 5th Silk Road Forum in October, bringing together around 60 representatives from international organisations and governments. The forum aims to strengthen cooperation in international and regional trade, serving as a platform for dialogue among Silk Road Initiative countries, global institutions and the private sector. The event will feature thematic panels on transport, trade, tourism, energy and IT. It will run alongside the FinTech Summit, with Georgia's Ministry of Economy allocating almost $700,000 for both events. That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.